Gamar Tov, friends, and Chag Sameach. There was a pause just before the cage doors came rattling closed, and the 15-minute descent of 4,850 feet into the earth began. This was a crew packed in tight. Some 30 physicists, engineers, biologists, one journalist, and mostly miners. Ex-gold miners, actually. This hadn't been an active mine for 18 years. The guy working the lift let the operator above know that the cab was full and that they were a go. For a brief, delirious moment, suspended at the top of what was once the largest, deepest gold mine in North America, everything went quiet. Somewhere overhead, the frigid South Dakota winds whistled faintly, whipping through the Black Hills on that February day. A reminder of everything, the entire world that they were leaving, as they began to drop and drop and drop. The cage moved slowly and steadily, covering about 5 feet a second. They passed openings to shallower floors, dark and dripping with water. A few biologists worked here and there, scraping up bacteria from the muck, studying what are called extremophiles to consider life forms that might exist in extreme circumstances, maybe even on other planets. That was an epic mystery, certainly, but their destination was farther below, at what is called floor 4850 in the former Homestake mine in Lead, a town outside of Deadwood, South Dakota, now known as the Sanford Underground Research Facility, or SURF. Here, physicists from around the globe are trying to solve a puzzle more fundamental than life itself, namely, what is the universe mostly made of? In order for existence to, exist, for galaxies to spin the way they do, and for light from distant stars to bend the way it appears to, there must be quite a bit more out there than we've seen so far in here. What's called the Standard Model, which classifies all elementary particles, accounts for just 16% of the universe's mass. That leaves another whopping 84%. And there are several theories as to what this remainder might be, but it all goes by the same name: dark matter. Dark matter. Yom Kippur is supposed to be a day of highs and lows, soaring trips to the upper realms, but also a day of introspection. It's a day of paradoxes and contrasts, but ideally, and in so many ways, it is a day when we are to descend into the pit. Yom Kippur is the only biblically mandated fast, the only one. It's the one day where the yawning pit of hunger is supposed to stay empty. We are supposed to afflict ourselves on this day for so many reasons, to make ourselves, in the language of the Torah, poor. Yes, to elicit compassion for those for whom hunger and an emptiness is a constant or even chronic condition. But to literally be, for 25 hours, in the depths, because it is there, we are told, that the most profound truths and portals to insight and growth may be. The nature of the universe is elusive and mysterious. Why, we ask, whether we are physicists or not, are things the way they are? On Yom Kippur, we are supposed to get as deep as we possibly can into the cave of the inner life. I have been hearing so often lately, why do people do what they do? And why do I do what I do? On Yom Kippur, we are commanded to ask that question and do our best to plumb the depths and look for solutions. In an extended teaching on the themes of Yom Kippur, Rabbi Sachs reminds me, and some of you, I hope by extension, that the first instance of forgiveness in Jewish recorded history is by a man who quite literally is the first and one of the very few, and really the only one who is described literally, as having descended into a pit. Now, if we were together in person, I'd ask you to raise your hands and say, of course, who is that extraordinary forebearer of ours who was thrown into a pit? Joseph. And in a story that mirrors so many of the ups and downs of Yom Kippur itself, Joseph, after going into the pit, thrown there by his brothers as a compromise when they decided to relent and not kill him, while they thought about what to do, he sat in a pit where there was no water. What must he have experienced there? And yet no sooner is he there than he is pulled out of the pit, sold into slavery, seems to achieve heights that are really remarkable for someone of his background. He becomes head of Potiphar's household, only to be wrongly accused of a crime. And where is he sent yet again? Back into a pit. Back into a deep, dark dungeon where he sits awaiting his fate. And it is no surprise and no accident that it is Joseph, this man who was thrown into a pit, raised up high, put into jail, and ultimately saved to become Pharaoh's right-hand man. When Joseph's brothers come with their hearts on their sleeves and their hands and hats outstretched, that in one of the most extraordinary narratives in all of human history, Joseph, the one who was in the pit, is the one who is able to bestow forgiveness on his brothers. The lessons from deep in the pit are mighty. I'll introduce today a man whose story I will share a little more in full in the next many days, because I don't want to shortchange him at all. This man's name is John Grobman. I learned of his story in the J Weekly a few days ago, written by Alex Wall. John Grobman is a man who has been in the pit. He developed a drug habit at a young age. He was brought up nominally Jewish in Hillsborough and was sentenced under California's then 3 strikes law to life in prison for drug offenses. He was told by the judge, who slammed down the gavel on John's sentence, "Young man, I see no redeeming qualities in you. I don't think you have a chance in hell of redemption. I'm putting you away." It gives me goosebumps and tremors to think about it. And John still cries when he speaks of it. Through an extraordinary process of teshuvah, meeting with the local Chabad rabbi here in the high desert in Lancaster, where he was until a few years ago at the maximum security prison up the road, through an extraordinary path, John clawed his way back and up and out. and now works full-time with a program called Pause for Life, PAWS, Pause for Life, where incarcerated men and women, and there are far too many in this country, where a few fortunate ones are able to work on training for doggies from shelters who are considered to be behavioral problems, who too are about to be sent into the pit. And through a complex and loving process of redemption, not only the dogs, but the inmates are reformed as well. Of the 39 inmates who are now outmates, who are free, who have participated directly in the program, Pause for Life, none of them so far have been returned to prison. And John lives on the outside, free and continuing his journey to give back. We need these stories from the pit, from deep into the earth and deep into the soul, because at one time or another, we have all been there. And on Yom Kippur, no matter how things have been going, we were invited to kind of get into the cage and go down into the deep. I know it's been one crisis on top of another. If it hadn't been, we wouldn't still be in this format. We have been in a pit for a while, my friends. But at least to some extent, we've been down in it together. What a critical time for our country and our planet. It is appropriate to take this deep dive into what ails us as individuals and as a species. To do and enter into the kind of work that Carl Jung called the realm of the shadow self. Jung described the grotto where the destructive patterns reside, the place where forces that defy our values live and conspire against us, this place where the dark matter lives and moves us forward. Going into that deep, as Rabbi Finley teaches, can make us very ill at ease. We see things we may not want to see. We bring light into hidden chambers, and it may make us look at our life story differently. We might have to redefine ourselves to find that we are flawed characters on the hero's journey. We might find that the values we say we hold dear aren't always the values by which we live. We may not be the cause of our suffering. So many of us have endured trauma, forces beyond our control. But whether we stay down in the pit can very often be a matter of choice. On Yom Kippur, we are invited to rappel down into that grotto and bring the light of consciousness into its damp and eerie atmosphere. And when we do, something beautiful can happen. Some damaged part of the soul swirling in that dark matter may yet call out, Refa'eni, heal me. We spend Yom Kippur down in the pit, as we are bidden to do. It's been a dark and deep time. And if we're wondering how we might do this, it's all well and good. But what plan, what steps are we supposed to take to confront the dark matter and shine a light? Well, this was worth reading the fine print on the piece in Popular Science, because wouldn't you know it, the physicists have done quite a bit of work laying out a program for confronting our seat in the pit. Their quest, and they're quite humorous in a lot of ways, they work with particles, or they're searching for particles they call WIMPs, W-I-M-P. It stands for a weak, as in not strong, interacting massive particle. A weak interacting massive particle, a WIMP. which nonetheless seems to make up, according to physicists in 2021, most of the universe. They also look, by the way, for machos, which are a much bigger particle that announces itself, but they don't think has much to do with actually identifying dark matter. So between WIMPs and machos, the physicists have laid out a 6-point plan for how they go into the pit and look for what's driving the universe. 1, set a goal. 2, eliminate noise. 3, wait quietly. 4, interact. Be in relationship with what comes. 5, grab the flash. Hold on to the brilliant moment of insight, even if it's just for a moment. And 6, record the signal. I'll say the steps again, because these are exactly the recipe items that have been used in religion and psychology and self-help for thousands of years. When going into the pit, when the yawning hurt of hunger for something is open inside us, it's a signal to set a goal, eliminate noise, wait quietly, be in relationship, grab the flash, and record the signal. So simple and so challenging for doing the work of repair at Yom Kippur. But Rabbi Finley goes further to remind me that this time of the high holidays is a 3-act drama. On Rosh Hashanah, we stood in the light and celebrated creation as one human family, one Jewish family under God, the Creator and Sovereign. On Yom Kippur, we're not supposed to be alone. This is supposed to be done in community, but it is structured, is Yom Kippur, as an elegantly personal dance of meeting the inner self and realigning with the metaphor of a clean slate and the hope for another bite of that apple after the fast. Whether it happens on Yom Kippur or another day, it's incidental. At some point, ideally, every person has a Yom Kippur, a day of descent into the pit and the beginning of crawling out to something new and beautiful. But then please don't forget Sukkot. If you've done this work today of descending into the pit, then it won't be easy to just hop back into regular life. We need Sukkot, and our sages provided it. That's the place of liminal shade and light, fragility and permanence, that beautiful feast of booths, of tabernacles, which is coming in just a few days. Sit there for a while. Be in the in-between, the liminal place between full light and full darkness, that in-between state that invites us to re-enter the world, one blessed moment at a time. It's 8 days. Enjoy every single blessed moment. And we'll celebrate that together, God willing, in a few days. Chevra, the world is full of dark matter. Stuff we can't explain, but we see its effect on the universe. I can't force compassion, patience, gratitude, kindness, or health on anyone, and neither can you. We can only try to model these beautiful traits in ourselves and work on our own tasks, identifying those goals, eliminating so much of the noise, being patient, staying in connection and relationship with one another. And if we have flashes of insight, hold on to them. Notice them. Write them down. Act on them and go forward. If we can use this unholy chapter in human history in a holy way to look for evidence of our own dark matter in the quiet isolation of this time, then let us do so with the hope that we will emerge, as I pray we do soon and in good health, more in touch, more in balance, and more in faith. May this trip into the unknown, down into the depths, be the start of a new and brilliant journey. Gamar chatima tova. May you be sealed in the book of life for goodness, for blessing, and for strength. Amen.